The notebook is a composition book. The black and white marbled cover, the sewn binding, the kind you buy at a drugstore for $2.79. The notebook contains 4,312 entries. Each entry is a guest, a name, a room preference, an allergy, a pillow type, a thermostat setting, a newspaper preference, a coffee order, a note about a child's stuffed animal that must be placed on the bed facing the door, a note about a widow who asks for 2 towels even though she is alone because the second towel was her husband's, and the habit is the grief, and the grief is the habit. And the housekeeper who wrote the entry understood this without being told, because the housekeeper has been reading guests for 19 years, and the reading is not a skill on a resume. The reading is a fluency in the language of human need that no hotel management software has ever been programmed to speak. The notebook belongs to Alma Sinclair. She is 51 years old. She has been a housekeeper at the Beaumont Grand, the flagship property of Beaumont Hospitality Group, for 19 years. She earns $16.20 per hour. She cleans 14 rooms per shift. She has cleaned approximately 68,000 rooms in her career. She knows every room in the hotel, the 211 rooms across 9 floors, the way the light enters room 714 in the afternoon and warms the west wall, the way the bathroom fan in room 302 rattles at low speed but not at high speed, the way the closet door in room 518 doesn't latch unless you lift the handle slightly while pushing. She knows these things because she has been in these rooms 68,000 times, and the rooms have taught her their secrets, and the secrets are maintenance requests that have never been filed because the housekeeper files the secrets in her body. She lifts the handle on 518 without thinking. She sets the fan to high in 302 without being asked. She closes the blinds in 714 before the afternoon sun hits the west wall. Because the guest in 714 is a repeat, and the repeat guest once mentioned that the sun woke her from a nap, and Alma wrote it in the notebook, and the notebook remembers what the hotel's property management system does not. The notebook is not a system. The notebook is 4,312 acts of attention, written in ballpoint pen in the handwriting of a woman who did not finish high school and who has never used a spreadsheet and who cannot operate the hotel's $2.8 million property management system. But who understands, at a level that the property management system cannot reach, that hospitality is not a transaction. Hospitality is the practice of knowing what a person needs before the person knows they need it, and the knowing requires a kind of intelligence that no software engineer has ever coded, because the intelligence is not data. The intelligence is care, and care cannot be automated. The Beaumont Grand's guest satisfaction score is 97.4%. The network average across Beaumont Hospitality's 23 properties is 88.1%. The difference, 9.3 percentage points, represents approximately $4.7 million in annual revenue attributable to repeat bookings, direct referrals, and the rate premium that a 97.4% satisfaction score commands in the luxury hotel market. The difference has persisted for 11 years. The difference has never been explained. The CEO's name is Quentin Beaumont. He is 55 years old. He is the third-generation owner and CEO of Beaumont Hospitality Group. 23 luxury hotels across 12 states, $620 million in annual revenue, 6,400 employees. His grandfather, Clive, opened the first hotel in 1958 in Charleston, South Carolina, a 12-room inn on King Street with a wraparound porch and a guest book that Clive kept at the front desk and that Clive read every morning because the guest book told Clive what the guests needed, and the needs were the business and the business was the needs. Clive was a hotelier the way some people are born into a language. He spoke hospitality as a first tongue. Clive remembered every guest's name. Clive remembered their children's names, their anniversaries, the flowers they preferred, the side of the bed they slept on. Clive kept these details in his head, and when his head could no longer hold them, when the 12 rooms became 40 rooms, and the 40 rooms became a second property, and the second property became a company, Clive kept the details in a notebook, a composition book, the black and white marbled cover, $2.79 at the drugstore. Clive's notebook was legendary. The notebook was the first CRM, the the first customer relationship management system in the company's history, written in longhand, organized by guest name, cross-referenced by room preference. Clive's notebook is in a glass case in the lobby of the Charleston property. The notebook is a relic. The notebook is also a reproach, a reminder that the company's founder understood something that the company's $2.8 million property management system does not understand, which is, the guest is not a data point. The guest is a person, and a person is not served by data. A person is served by attention. Clive died in 2003. He was 81. He was still keeping the notebook. The last entry was written 2 days before he died. A guest named Mrs. Avery, who preferred the corner room on the 3rd floor because the corner room had 2 windows, and the 2 windows meant cross-ventilation. And the cross-ventilation meant she did not need the air conditioning, and the absence of air conditioning meant silence. And the silence was what Mrs. Avery came to the hotel for, because Mrs. Avery's husband had Alzheimer's, and the house was never silent, and the hotel was the silence, and the silence was the rest. Clive knew this. Clive wrote it down. The entry is the last thing Clive's hand ever wrote. The entry is care in its final form. Quentin's father, Roland, ran the company between Clive and Quentin. 12 years, a bridge generation, the generation that took the 12-room inn and made it a regional brand. Roland was a builder. Roland acquired properties, renovated them, branded them. Roland understood the business of hotels, but not the soul of hotels. The soul was Clive's. The soul was the notebook. Roland kept the notebook in the glass case because Roland respected what the notebook represented, but did not practice what the notebook taught. Roland managed by occupancy rates and average daily rates and revenue per available room. Roland was good. Roland was not Clive. Quentin is not Clive. Quentin is the Cornell Hotel School graduate. Quentin is the revenue management, the brand strategy, the portfolio optimization that a third-generation CEO brings to a first-generation company. Quentin grew the revenue from $180 million to $620 million in 19 years. Quentin did this through acquisition and standardization and the specific operational architecture that produces scale, the property management systems, the brand standards manuals, the service protocols that ensure every Beaumont property delivers a consistent experience. Consistency is the brand. Consistency is the promise. Consistency is also the ceiling, the thing that makes every property the same, and that makes no property exceptional, and that produces an 88.1% satisfaction score across the network, which is good, which is competitive, which is not 97.4%. The anomaly at the Beaumont Grand arrived on Quentin's desk 14 months ago, not as a report, but as a question from the analytics team. The Grand outperforms the network by 9.3 points on guest satisfaction consistently year over year. We can't attribute it to the building, the location, or the management team. The GM at the Grand uses the same systems, the same brand standards, the same protocols. The difference is structural, but we can't identify the structure. Quentin asked Miles Fairfax, the VP of Operations, a man who had managed the hotel portfolio from the corporate office in Atlanta for 8 years, to investigate. Miles produced an 11-page report. The report attributed the anomaly to a combination of property tenure, local market dynamics, and above-average staff retention. The report was articulate. The report was professional. The report explained nothing. 11 properties have similar tenure profiles, Quentin said. 7 are in comparable markets. Staff retention at the Grand is 91%, which is high, but it doesn't explain 9.3 points. Staff retention is a result, not a cause. Something is causing the retention and the satisfaction simultaneously. What is it? Miles did not have an answer. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from today, because this is the story of a CEO who worked the front desk at his own hotel and the housekeeper who had been quietly delivering the service that built his reputation. Subscribe to Untold Hearts, because these are the stories the housekeeping cart never gets to tell. Quentin went undercover on a Sunday evening in November. The arrangement was made through Colette Ramsey, the night manager at the Grand, a woman who had started as a bellhop 22 years ago and who understood the hotel from the basement laundry to the penthouse suite because she had worked every floor and every shift and every position between. Colette was the only person at the property who knew. The badge said, Quinn Aldridge, Front Desk Associate, Evening Shift. The cover, a management trainee from the Corporate Development Program, assigned for a 2-week rotation. Evening shift ran from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. The shift that handled the check-ins, the shift that greeted the guests, the shift that stood behind the marble counter and represented the brand and answered the questions and solved the problems and smiled through the complaints, because the smile was the brand standard and the brand standard was the protocol, and the protocol was what Quentin had built. Quentin arrived at 2:30 p.m. The employee entrance was at the rear of the building, a service corridor that ran from the loading dock through the laundry and past the housekeeping office and into the back-of-house hallway that connected to the lobby. The corridor smelled like industrial detergent and steam and the particular warm cotton scent of freshly pressed linens, the smell of a hotel, the smell that guests never encounter, because the smell lives in the back of the house and the back of the house is invisible, the infrastructure that produces the experience that the front of the house presents. Colette met him at the service entrance. She was 46, compact, with dark hair pulled back in a name badge that was worn smooth at the edges from 22 years of lanyards and lapels. She looked at Quentin's shoes, the dress shoes that were new, the leather that had never absorbed the back-of-house grime, the soles that had never walked the service corridors at speed. New shoes, Colette said. Management trainee. Trainees usually look nervous. You look like you own the place. She paused. Don't do that. The staff will notice. Look nervous. Quentin tried to look nervous. Colette shook her head. Just stay behind the desk and don't fix anything. The front desk doesn't fix things. The front desk logs things. The fixing happens in housekeeping. Housekeeping? You'll see. The walk through the grand from the service corridor to the lobby was the walk between two worlds. The service corridor was linoleum and fluorescent light and the functional infrastructure of a building that served 211 guests at a time. The walls were painted institutional gray. The ceiling pipes were exposed. A laundry cart sat against the wall, piled with white sheets, the sheets that would become the crisp pressed bedding that the guests would pull back at night, the sheets that began their life in this corridor, damp and bundled and anonymous. Then the corridor ended and the lobby began, and the transformation was absolute. Marble floors. A chandelier that cost more than Alma earns in 2 years, fresh flowers, peonies, and hydrangeas, replaced every 3 days, $1,200 per month in flowers alone. The scent changed from detergent and steam to the hotel's signature fragrance, a custom blend of white tea and bergamot that was diffused through the HVAC system and that the guests associated with luxury, but that was, in fact, a $40 per month cartridge in a scent machine hidden behind the concierge desk. The lobby was the performance. The service corridor was the rehearsal. The guests only saw the performance. Quentin stood behind the front desk. The desk was marble, Carrara, imported, the same marble that was in the lobby floor, the continuity of material that the brand standards manual specified as a seamless extension of the arrival experience. Behind the desk, a computer screen showed the property management system, the $2.8 million system, the system that tracked reservations and room assignments and maintenance tickets and housekeeping status and the 3-pillow options and the smoking/non-smoking preference and all the data that the system was designed to capture, and none of the data that the system was not designed to capture, and the data it was not designed to capture was the data that mattered. The first complaint came at 4:17 p.m. A guest, a woman in her 60s, silver hair, traveling alone, room 714, approached the front desk with the particular posture of a person who has been patient and whose patience has expired. The room is warm. The thermostat is set to 68, but it feels like 74. And the afternoon sun is hitting the west wall and I cannot nap. I specifically requested a room on the east side. Quentin looked at the reservation. The reservation showed room 714. The reservation showed no east side preference. The guest preference field in the property management system was blank. The system said, This guest has no recorded preferences. The system said 714 is correct. I apologize for the inconvenience. Let me see what east-facing rooms we have available. Don't. A voice from behind him, not from the lobby, from the back hallway, the service corridor, the invisible infrastructure. A woman in a housekeeping uniform, dark gray dress, white apron, her hair dark brown streaked with silver and pulled into a low bun, reading glasses on a chain around her neck, the kind of sensible flat shoes that a person wears when they walk 9 miles per day on marble floors. She was carrying a small notebook, the composition book, the marbled cover, the $2.79 artifact. Mrs. Langford, the woman said to the guest, I moved your blinds to close this morning when I turned your room. I should have set the thermostat to 66. You run warm, and 714 gets the afternoon sun. That's my fault. Give me 12 minutes. I'll have the room right. The guest's posture changed. The patience returned. Thank you, Alma. The guest knew the housekeeper's name. The housekeeper knew the guest's temperature preference, sun sensitivity, and the fact that she napped in the afternoon. None of this was in the property management system. All of it was in the notebook. If this story has touched your heart, take a moment to share it and subscribe to Untold Hearts, because sometimes the person who knows the guest best is the one the guest never sees. Day 2. The Notebook. Alma showed Quentin the notebook at 6 p.m., the hour when the housekeeping shift was ending and the evening shift was settling into its rhythm, and the transition between the two was the time when the hotel breathed, the pause between the exhale of the day and the inhale of the night. They sat in the housekeeping office, a windowless room on the second floor, 8 feet by 12 feet, with a desk and a computer that Alma did not use, and a shelf of cleaning supplies and a bulletin board with shift schedules and a poster about proper lifting technique. The room was the headquarters of the department that generated 97.4% guest satisfaction, and the room was the size of a walk-in closet. Alma opened the notebook. The notebook was the 7th one, 7 composition books over 19 years, each one filled front to back, each one containing approximately 600 entries. The first 6 notebooks were in a drawer in Alma's apartment. The 7th, the current one, was in her apron pocket, the way a doctor carries a stethoscope, the way a machinist carries a micrometer, the tool of the trade that the trade does not acknowledge. Mrs. Langford, room 714. She's been coming here for 9 years. Twice a year, April and November. She always requests east-facing, but the system doesn't capture it because she made the request by phone in 2017 and the phone agent didn't enter it, and the preference was lost in the system but not in the notebook. She runs warm, 66 degrees, not 68. She naps between 2 and 4 p.m. She travels alone since her husband passed, 2019. She asks for 2 sets of towels. The second set is for him. She folds the second set and places it on his side of the vanity. I don't remove it during turndown. The system says replace towels daily. I leave the second set because the second set is not about towels. Quentin stared at the entry. The entry was 12 lines of handwriting. The entry contained more actionable guest intelligence than the property management system contained for any guest in the database. How many guests are in the notebook? 4,312. Not all current. Some have passed away. Some have stopped traveling. Some have switched to other hotels. The active entries are about 1,800. Of those, approximately 940 are repeat guests who stay at the Grand at least twice a year. Those 940 guests generate about 62% of our room revenue. 62%. I know each of them. I know their names, their preferences, their allergies, their habits, their griefs. I know which ones are going through a divorce and need the room to feel like a refuge. I know which ones are celebrating an anniversary and need the champagne set up before they arrive. I know which ones have a child with a food allergy and need the minibar cleared of anything with nuts. I know these things because I asked, or because I noticed, or because the room told me. The room tells you everything if you pay attention. The medications on the nightstand. The extra pillows arranged in a specific way that says a person has back pain. The book on the desk that says a person is going through something. The room speaks. I listen. I write it down. And the front desk doesn't have this information. The front desk has the property management system. The property management system has fields, Room type preference, smoking/non-smoking. Pillow preference, firm, soft, hypoallergenic. The system has 3 pillow options. I have 27 pillow configurations documented in this notebook because 27 different guests have 27 different ways they need to sleep, and the system gives them 3 options. And 3 options is not hospitality, 3 options is a menu. If you're enjoying this story, hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second, costs nothing, and helps Untold Hearts reach more people who need to hear it. Back to the story. Day 3. The system behind the system. It was not just the notebook. The notebook was the record. But the system, the actual system, the living operational infrastructure that produced 97.4% satisfaction, was Alma and the 14 housekeepers she supervised, and the way Alma had trained them to see. I train every new housekeeper myself, Alma said. They were in the service elevator, the slow elevator, the one that the guests don't use, the one that smells like laundry detergent and moves between floors with the patience of a machine that has been carrying cleaning carts for 30 years. The company training takes 2 days. Corporate sends a manual, 147 pages, brand standards, cleaning protocols, room setup specifications. The manual is fine. The manual teaches the minimum. The minimum is how you get 88%. What gets you to 97.4? 3 things. First, read the room before you clean the room. Stand in the doorway for 30 seconds. Look, what's different? What's moved? What's new? Is there a medication bottle that wasn't there yesterday? Is there a laptop open on the desk? Don't touch it. Don't close it. Don't move the chair. Is there a child's drawing taped to the mirror? Leave it. The mirror is not more important than the drawing. The manual says wipe the mirror. I say read the mirror first. Second, remember the guest, not the room number. The system assigns room 412. I assign Mrs. Chen, who has a latex allergy and cannot have the standard rubber-backed bath mat. The system sees a room to clean. I see a person to serve. The distinction is everything. The distinction is the 9.3 points. Third, report up through the notebook, not through the system. When a housekeeper notices something, a preference, a habit, a need, they tell me. I write it down. The notebook is the central repository. Every morning before the shift, I brief the team. I tell them which repeat guests are in-house and what the notebook says. The team arrives at each room already knowing the guest. The guest does not have to ask. The guest does not have to complain. The guest walks into the room, and the room is right, and the rightness is invisible, and the invisibility is the point. The best service is the service that the guest does not notice, because the guest does not have to notice because the need was anticipated before the need was felt. That's Clive, Quentin said. He said it without thinking. The words came out before the processing, before the CEO caught up with the grandson, before the brand strategy caught up with the memory of a man who kept a composition book at the front desk and who knew every guest's name. Who's Clive? Nobody. Someone who did it the same way, a long time ago. Well, whoever Clive was, Clive understood that the guest is not a data field. Clive understood that hospitality is memory, and memory lives in people, not in systems. Day 4. The complaints. Quentin spent the 4th day tracking the complaints, not the complaints that reached the front desk, but the complaints that didn't. The complaints that Alma intercepted, the complaints that were solved before the guest had to articulate them. By 4 p.m., he had counted 11 complaints that would have reached the front desk, that would have become logged incidents, that would have become metrics, that would have become the data that the property management system captured and that the analytics team analyzed. 11 complaints that never became data because Alma's system caught them first. Room 302, the bathroom fan that rattles at low speed. The system doesn't know. Alma knows. Every housekeeper sets it to high before the guest arrives. Room 518, the closet door that doesn't latch. The system has no maintenance ticket. Alma's team lifts the handle while pushing. The guest never encounters a closet that won't close. Room 941, a repeat guest with a severe feather allergy. The system shows hypoallergenic pillow preference. The system does not show that the guest also reacts to the feather-filled decorative cushions on the sofa. Alma removed the cushions from 941 3 years ago and replaced them with synthetic fills from her personal supply. Cushion covers she bought herself, $34 from a discount store, because the hotel's purchasing system does not have a line item for guest-specific decorative cushion replacement, and creating a purchase order would take 6 weeks, and the guest was arriving in 3 days. You bought the cushions yourself? I've bought a lot of things myself. The cushion covers. A specific brand of decaf tea that a guest with insomnia drinks every night. The hotel stocks a different brand, and the different brand keeps her awake, and the system says, decaf tea provided. And the system is technically correct, and technically correct is not hospitality. I buy the tea. I put it in the room. The cost is $7.80 per box. The guest stays 4 times a year at $680 per night. 4 stays times 3 nights times $680 is $8,160 in annual room revenue from one guest. My $7.80 box of tea generates $8,160 in revenue. The return on investment is 1,046 to 1, but the system doesn't know about the tea because the tea is not in the system. The tea is in the notebook. How much do you spend, out of pocket, per year? Alma paused. She did the math, not quickly, not automatically, but with the careful deliberation of a person who tracks every dollar, because every dollar matters. About $340 a year. Cushion covers, specific teas, a lavender pillow spray that 3 guests prefer, birthday cards for the regulars. I send birthday cards, handwritten, to about 60 repeat guests per year. The stamps and cards cost about $90. The rest is small things. Guest-specific small things that the system doesn't accommodate, and that the purchasing department would take 6 weeks to approve, and that the guest needs Tuesday, not in 6 weeks. $340 a year. Out of a $16.20 per hour wage, out of a gross annual income of $33,696. Alma was spending 1% of her salary to generate 62% of the hotel's repeat revenue. Tell me about your family, Quentin said. My husband, Edgar. He drives for a linen service, the commercial laundry that washes hotel sheets and restaurant tablecloths. He loads the truck at 4 a.m., runs the route until 2 p.m., comes home smelling like bleach and starch. He makes $38,000. Combined, we bring home about $54,000 before taxes. After taxes, insurance, mortgage on our house in East Point, a 2-bedroom that we bought in 2011 when it was $118,000, now worth $240,000. But we can't sell it because we can't afford to buy anything else in a market where everything costs $240,000. After all of it, the fixed costs, the car payment on Edgar's van, the insurance, the food, we have about $380 a month, surplus. And you spend $340 a year, almost $30 a month, on guests. $28.33 a month out of $380 surplus. That leaves $352. The $352 is the margin. The margin does not know about the roof. Our roof leaks. Not badly. A slow drip in the back bedroom when it rains hard from the south. Edgar put a bucket under it 3 years ago. The bucket is still there. A new roof is $8,400. The $352 monthly surplus, saved perfectly for 2 years, is $8,448. That assumes nothing else breaks. Something always breaks. She paused. My daughter, Rosalind, she's at Georgia State, hospitality management. She chose hospitality because she grew up hearing my stories about the hotel and the guests in the notebook. She wants to run a hotel. The irony is not lost on me. My daughter is getting a degree in the thing I've been doing without a degree for 19 years. Tuition is $11,200 a year after the Hope Scholarship. We cover what we can. She works the front desk at a Holiday Inn Express on weekends. She makes $14.50 an hour at the Holiday Inn Express front desk. I make $16.20 an hour cleaning rooms at a luxury hotel that charges $680 a night. The gap between $14.50 and $16.20 is 19 years of experience. The gap is $1.70. If Untold Hearts has become part of your week, consider joining the channel membership. A few dollars a month keeps these stories coming. Links are in the description. Now, back to the story. Day 5. The Others. At 6 a.m., The hour when the housekeeping shift began, the hour that the guests did not see because 6 a.m. was the invisible hour, the hour when the hotel transformed from the night's rest to the day's presentation. Quentin attended Alma's morning briefing. The briefing was held in the housekeeping office, 14 housekeepers in a room designed for two. They stood shoulder to shoulder, carts in the hallway, uniforms pressed, name badges visible. Alma stood at the desk with the notebook open. Floor 7. Mrs. Langford is in 714. Thermostat to 66. Blinds closed by 1:30. 2 towel sets. Do not remove the second set from the vanity. Mr. and Mrs. Kellerman are in 709. Anniversary trip. Champagne should already be up from last night. Check the ice bucket. If the champagne is unopened, don't replace the ice. If it's been opened, replace the ice and add a fresh glass, because they drank from the bottle the first night. That's their tradition. Room 711. New guest, first time, read the room, note everything. She continued, floor by floor, guest by guest. 14 housekeepers received a personalized briefing for every occupied room in their section. The briefing took 11 minutes, 11 minutes of institutional knowledge, of human intelligence, of care documented in ballpoint pen, transferred from the notebook to the team to the rooms to the guests. A housekeeper named Petra, a woman from Bosnia who had been at the Grand for 12 years and who cleaned with a precision that Quentin recognized as artistry, the specific attention to detail that transforms a task into a craft, raised her hand. Room 303, the new guest. I noticed her running shoes by the door and a yoga mat rolled up by the closet. She had a bottle of magnesium supplements on the nightstand and a foam roller under the bed. She's an athlete or a fitness person. She might want extra water bottles or a late checkout for morning workouts. Write it down, Alma said. First entry, room 303, running shoes, yoga mat, magnesium, foam roller. Possible fitness preference. Note for tomorrow, extra water bottles. Check the gym schedule card is in the room. The entry was created in 30 seconds. The property management system had no field for foam roller observed under bed. The notebook did. And tomorrow, the guest in 303 would find extra water bottles in a gym schedule without asking, and the guest would not know why the hotel felt so attentive. And the not knowing was the point. Another housekeeper, a young man named Ivo, 2 years at the Grand, who Alma had trained personally, spoke up. Room 422, the Bassett family. The kid left a drawing on the desk, a house with a tree and a dog. I wasn't sure if I should leave it or move it for cleaning. Leave it, Alma said, and put it back in exactly the same position after you clean the desk. If the drawing was taped to the mirror, leave it taped. The drawing is more important than the mirror. The drawing is why the family is here. They're on vacation, the kid is making memories, the drawing is the memory. We don't clean memories. Ivo nodded. The training was the briefing, and the briefing was the training, and the training was 19 years of Alma's attention, compressed into 11 minutes every morning, and distributed to 14 people who then distributed it to 211 rooms, and the distribution was the system, not the software, not the protocol, not the brand standard, but the human system of care that Alma had built one entry at a time. Day 6, the reveal. Saturday evening, 8 p.m. The lobby was alive, guests checking in, the bar filling, the concierge directing, the front desk processing. The hotel was performing its public face. Behind the marble counter and the fresh flowers and the ambient music, the machine was running. The invisible infrastructure of housekeeping and maintenance and kitchen and laundry, the back-of-house labor that produced the front-of-house experience. Quentin found Alma in the housekeeping office. She was writing in the notebook, the end-of-shift entries, the day's observations, the intelligence gathered by 14 housekeepers across 211 rooms, distilled into the composition book. My name isn't Quinn Aldridge. My name is Quentin Beaumont. I'm the CEO of Beaumont Hospitality Group. Alma set her pen down. She set it on the notebook, on the page she was writing, on the entry she was creating, on the act of attention that she was performing at the end of a shift that had started at 6 a.m. and that had included 14 rooms cleaned and a morning briefing and 11 intercepted complaints and a birthday card written to a repeat guest and a box of decaf tea placed in room 941 and the constant, unrelenting, underpaid practice of caring for strangers. You're the CEO. I'm the CEO. Clive's grandson. Alma looked at the notebook. She looked at it for a long time. Clive. You said that name on the third day. You said, "That's Clive." I looked it up. Clive Beaumont, the founder, the man with the composition book. The man with the composition book. This is his system. Alma held up the notebook. I didn't know that when I started. I didn't know about Clive's notebook. I started keeping the notebook because the property management system didn't have a field for what I needed to remember. The system had 3 pillow options, and I had 27 guests who needed 27 different configurations. The system had room preference, and I had a widow who needed the second towel set left on the vanity. The system had data. I had people. So I started writing. 19 years of writing. And the writing became the system, and the system became the culture. And the culture is why this hotel is different, and the different is 9.3 points. And the 9.3 points is me and these 14 housekeepers in this notebook that costs $2.79. What do you need? 3 things. First, digitize the notebook, not to replace it, to extend it. The notebook works for the grand because I'm here. If I get sick, if I retire, if I get hit by a bus, the notebook goes with me. 19 years of guest intelligence walks out the door. The system needs to be in the system, not the property management system, which doesn't have the fields, but a new system, a guest memory system designed by housekeepers for housekeepers that captures what we see and makes it available to every property. Build the software around the notebook, not around the database. What else? Pay us, not just me, the housekeepers, the 14 people who deliver 97.4% satisfaction and who generate 62% of repeat revenue and who earn $16.20 an hour. The front desk earns $19.50 because the front desk faces the guest. The housekeepers face the room. The room is where the guest lives. The room is where the satisfaction is created. The room is where the 9.3 points happen. Pay the room what the room is worth. What's the third thing? The cushions, the tea, the birthday cards, the $340 a year that I spend out of pocket to serve the guests that the purchasing system takes 6 weeks to serve. Create a discretionary fund, per housekeeper, per month, for guest-specific expenses, not a budget request, not a purchase order, a fund, $50 a month per housekeeper. The cost is $8, $400 per year for the grand. The return, calculated from the revenue generated by the guests whose specific needs the fund addresses, is approximately $380,000 in repeat booking revenue. The ratio is 45:1. But the ratio is not the point. The point is that a housekeeper should not have to choose between serving the guest and paying for groceries. The fund says the hotel trusts you to spend $50 the way you would spend it. The way I've been spending my own money for 19 years. The leadership meeting was Monday. Quentin walked in carrying the notebook, the 7th composition book, the marbled cover, the $2.79 artifact. He set it on the conference table next to his grandfather's notebook, Clive's original, the one from the glass case in Charleston, the one that Quentin had retrieved on Sunday and brought to Atlanta and placed on the conference table, because the 2 notebooks needed to be in the same room at the same time for the executives to see what Quentin now saw. These are the 2 most valuable assets in this company, he said. This one was written by Clive Beaumont, the founder. This one was written by Alma Sinclair, a housekeeper. They are identical systems, guest memory documented in longhand, organized by name, driven by attention. My grandfather built this company on his notebook. Alma preserved what he built with hers. And we didn't know. We didn't know because we stopped looking at the housekeeping department and started looking at the dashboard. Miles shifted in his chair. If the guest intelligence is in a personal notebook and not in the PMS, there are data governance concerns. The data governance concern is that the best guest data in our company lives in a $2.79 notebook in a housekeeper's apron, because our $2.8 million property management system doesn't have the fields to capture it. The governance failure isn't Alma's. The governance failure is ours. The CTO, a woman named Simone Blackwell, leaned forward. If the notebook methodology is validated, we can build a custom module, a guest memory layer on top of the PMS, housekeeper-facing, observation-driven, not just preference fields. If it works at the Grand, we can deploy it across all 23 properties. It works at the Grand. It has worked at the Grand for 11 years. The question is not whether it works. The question is why it took us 14 months in an undercover operation to discover that our best system was built by a housekeeper with a composition book, guest memory system. Beaumont commissions a custom software module, designed with Alma as the primary consultant. The module is called the Notebook. The name is Alma's. The design is Alma's. Observation-driven entries, housekeeper-facing interface, searchable by guest name, sortable by room, shareable across properties. A guest who stays at the Grand in November and at the Beaumont Charleston in April carries their memory with them. The pillow configuration, the thermostat setting, the tea preference, the towel for the husband who is gone. The memory travels. The memory is no longer in one notebook and one apron. The memory is in the system, because the system was finally designed by the person who understood what the memory needed to be. Development cost, $420,000. Projected revenue impact across 23 properties, $18.4 million annually in incremental repeat bookings and rate premium. The ratio, 44:1. New position. Alma Sinclair is appointed Director of Guest Experience, a position that did not exist before Monday and that exists now because the position is necessary and the position is Alma. Salary, $82,000. The salary is 4 times what Alma earned as a housekeeper. Alma's office is at the Grand, not in the corporate building in Atlanta, but at the hotel on the 2nd floor, next to the housekeeping office, because Alma needs to see the carts and hear the briefings and walk the floors, because the floors are where the observations happen and the observations are the data. Alma still conducts the morning briefing, every day, 6 a.m., 14 housekeepers in the office. The notebook is open. The tradition continues because the software supplements the notebook but does not replace it, because the notebook is the practice and the practice is the culture. And the culture is not code. The culture is a woman standing in front of her team at 6 a.m., telling them that the drawing on the desk in room 422 is more important than the mirror. Compensation. Housekeepers across all 23 properties receive a base wage increase from $16.20 to $22 per hour. The increase reflects the value of housekeeping intelligence, the observations, the attention, the human perception that generates 97.4% satisfaction. The cost, across 890 housekeepers, $9.1 million. The cost is 49% of the projected first-year revenue impact. The cost is the acknowledgement that the person who cleans the room knows the guest better than the person who checks the guest in. Discretionary fund, $50 per housekeeper per month for guest-specific expenses. No purchase order, no approval chain. The housekeeper decides. The cost across 23 properties, $534,000. The projected return, $6.2 million in repeat revenue from guests whose specific needs the fund addresses. The ratio, 11.6:1. The real return, trust. The fund says to 890 housekeepers, we trust your judgment, we trust your attention. We trust that 19 years of reading rooms has taught you something that no brand standards manual can teach. Reimbursement. Alma is reimbursed $6,460, the estimated total of 19 years of out-of-pocket guest expenses at approximately $340 per year. The reimbursement is not a settlement. The reimbursement is an acknowledgement that Alma funded the company's guest experience program from her own wages for 19 years because the purchasing system was too slow and the need was too urgent, and the care could not wait for a purchase order. 6 months later, the notebook is live across all 23 properties. 890 housekeepers enter observations daily. The system contains 47,000 entries, guest preferences, habits, needs, griefs, joys, the human data that the property management system was never designed to capture. Guest satisfaction across the network has risen from 88.1% to 93.6%. The increase, 5.5 points, represents $11.8 million in incremental revenue in the first 6 months. The trajectory suggests The notebook will close the gap between the network and the grand within 2 years. The roof is fixed, not with savings, with the salary. The $82,000 salary changed the math the way a new foundation changes a house. The roof was repaired in December. $8,400, paid in full, no financing, no bucket in the back bedroom. Edgar still drives the linen route. Edgar did not quit. Edgar likes the route, the early mornings, the physical work, the satisfaction of a truck loaded correctly and a route completed on time. But Edgar no longer calculates the surplus at the end of every month. The surplus is no longer the margin. The surplus is the space. The space is where a family breathes. Rosalind transferred from the Holiday Inn Express to the Grand, a front desk internship, part of her degree program, supervised by Colette. Rosalind works the evening shift. Rosalind checks guests in using the notebook, the system her mother designed, the system that carries the memory of 4,312 guests, and that tells Rosalind, when Mrs. Langford arrives in April, that the thermostat should be 66 and the blinds should be closed by 1:30, and the second towel set should not be removed from the vanity. Rosalind does not need the system to tell her these things. Rosalind grew up hearing them at the dinner table. But the system means that every front desk associate at every Beaumont property, not just Rosalind, not just at the Grand, knows what the notebook knows. The memory has been democratized. The attention has been scaled. The care that lived in one woman's apron pocket now lives in the network. Alma travels. Once a month, she visits a different property. 2 days, training the housekeeping team, conducting the morning briefing, showing them how to read the room before they clean the room. She carries the 7th notebook in her bag. The 7th notebook is retired. The entries have been digitized. The data is in the system. But the notebook travels with Alma the way Clive's notebook sits in the glass case in Charleston, as the artifact, as the evidence, as the physical proof that the best technology in hospitality is a person who pays attention. The Grand still leads the network, 97.4%. The number has not changed because the number was never about the system. The number was about Alma and the 14 housekeepers and the morning briefing and the practice of seeing the guest through the room and the room through the guest and the attention that no software can automate. Quentin visits the Grand on Tuesdays. He walks the floors. He does not carry a notebook. He carries something else, the understanding that his grandfather's company, the company built from a 12-room inn and a composition book and a man who remembered every guest's name, is a company that runs on the attention of the people who clean the rooms and change the sheets and set the thermostats and leave the towels and buy the tea and write the birthday cards, and that the attention is not a line item, and the attention is not a dashboard metric, and the attention is the irreducible human practice that no $2.8 million system can purchase, and that no 11-page report can contain, and that lives permanently in the hands and the eyes and the heart of a woman with a $2.79 notebook and 19 years of care. Clive's notebook and Alma's notebook are in the same glass case now, side by side in the lobby of the Grand. The case has a plaque. The plaque reads, "The first Beaumont guest memory system, created by Clive Beaumont, 1958. The second, created by Alma Sinclair, Housekeeper, 2007. The tradition continues." Guests walk past the case every day. Some stop, some read. Some ask the front desk, "Who is Alma Sinclair?" And the front desk says, "She's our director of guest experience." And the guest says, "What did she do?" And the front desk says, "She remembered." Thank you for watching this story. If it reminded you that the person who cleans the room might know the guest better than anyone in the building, share it. Subscribe to Untold Hearts for more stories about the people whose attention builds what the world experiences. Tell us in the comments, have you ever had someone remember a small detail about you that made all the difference?